In a new move for Marvel Studios, the latest Thunderbolt teaser had title cards between shots of the movie showcasing all the talent behind the film that people might recognize. Shots of actors were intercut with cards citing the acting credits outside of the MCU and behind the camera credits for writing, directing, composing, cinematography, and editing. Projects mentioned by these cards include Midsommar. How do you say that? Midsommar?
Most people say Midsommar, but I started saying Midsommar, and I can't get off that train. So people probably hear me and like, ugh, he's so obnoxious or pretentious.
I've always said Midsommar because that's what I've heard, but it doesn't look like Midsommar. Okay, anyway. Projects mentioned by these credits are Midsommar, Everything Everywhere All at Once, my favorite movie, Beef, The Green Knight, A Different Man, as well as a couple of others. Director Jake Schreier cited a goal given by Kevin Feige to make can't say Kevin Feige tonight.
Kevin Feige.
Kevin Feige.
Kevin
Yeah, that's right.
Feige.
Kevin Feige.
Yeah, how would you say that, pretentious Jay Scotty?
Yeah.
Kevin Feige. Director Jake Schreier cited a goal given by Kevin Feige to make the film different, and this seems to be one of the ways Schreier is attempting to do so. What does it mean to list outside projects on an MCU blockbuster as a tactic?
More and more, this movie feels like it was just tailor-made for me, and I'm getting to that point where I have to get very careful about keeping my expectations in check, because I'm excited for a movie when I start to dream about going to see the movie. Like, what are we still a good 2 months out here? I had a dream, I think it was just last night, if not the night before, that I went to see the movie. And it was one of those weird dreams where I was like not paying attention to the movie and I got mad at myself.
It was the Bloodworm Moon.
It was the Bloodworm Moon. Yeah, let's blame it on the Bloodworm Moon here. But I actually held off on watching this trailer because I was just kind of at that point. I didn't know if I needed to see anything more. But after some coaxing from one Matthew Carroll here, I'm glad that I watched it because it was big on vibes and light on footage, and new footage, that is. And if you're going to do trailers like this, that's the way to do it for me. We already had 2 great trailers that did a great job setting up the story and the characters. Now, if you just want to lean into vibes, I'm cool with that. Now, the A24 comparisons I do appreciate, but I take it in stride, and I kind of, take it with a grain of salt, because at the end of the day, even with the director's comments here that he got the mandate from Feige to do something different, which is encouraging, at the end of the day, this is probably going to feel more like a standard Marvel movie than an A24 film. But again, I am glad that they're leaning into those comparisons, and there's no denying the strong character work, featured in all of the writers' previous work, which is super encouraging. We got Joanna Kahlo, who is a co-creator of The Bear. Lee Sung-jin co-created Beef. And then we've got Eric Pearson, who's kind of acting as the de facto in-house contributor, and he's worked on Ragnarok, Black Widow, and the upcoming Fantastic Four First Steps. So I think that bodes really well for me. That sounds like they have a nice combination of like outside new brains, new takes coming in, but then, someone to kind of keep the ship right and make sure it fits within the continuity of everything else. So yeah, A24 did respond on Twitter, and I appreciated their response, because they used a GIF from Euphoria where they were like, what the F? Is this new play about us? So I think, they're kind of leaning into it as well. We're like, okay, you want to be like us, that's cool, but you're not really like us. So
if they dropped the Kendrick Lamar song, that would have been a very different vibe. They not like us. They not like us.
That would have been good. But I want to take every opportunity I can to lay claim to my theory that the Asterix, again, I think we're going to get the reveal that this team is going to be named the Champions when it's all said and done. So you heard it here first.
That's why you come here. Yeah. You got a beam from the future from the Bloodworm Moon. It sent it straight to you, gift wrap.
Breakfast of Champions.
Can we please just call this episode Bloodworm Moon? Also, you're welcome.
Yeah, right.
I thought this was a weird trailer. Like because it's showing off the connections to that, not even just the talent, behind the camera has, but in front of the camera too, was saying like stars of this and this and this and this. And it seemed to go on and on and on with really the A24. Like it was double, triple, quadrupling down on the A24 connection. And Florence Pugh was even asked in an interview later after this trailer came out about this. And she really tried to say that it was a Marvel movie without saying it's a Marvel movie, kind of. It was kind of like, well, it actually ended up kind of being this like badass assassin indie sort of film, but just with these Marvel characters or something kind of thing. And again, it's like, I guess the cynical take is kind of like they really are trying to push it to be like, this isn't what you think. You know, we know you haven't been coming to the theater for these, so this one's way different or something like that. And I guess you can look at it and kind of, from my perspective, I look at it and kind of think, all right, this was kind of a strange marketing tactic, I think, like trying to kind of be like, we're with that guy and that guy and that guy and that guy, so that's why you should come see this. At the same time, I think, like Scotty, like you said, the talent is there for sure, and it's a unique talent set that we haven't really seen in Marvel films before. Like, the body of work is undeniably different from what we're used to in seeing, like the director, the lead, the writer, the cinematographer, and that combination is unique for this movie. And so I think that gives you reason to be excited. But I don't know, I didn't walk away like hating it or being like that was dumb or whatever, but I kind of walked away just being like, oh, that was a choice, I guess, like to market your movie. But still, I mean, still excited for it, obviously, because the culmination of the talent exists. I mean, they showed it to you; it's there. But I don't know. I just this didn't land with me. I guess maybe in the same way that maybe they intended it to. I guess.
You're just not an A24 guy, and that's okay.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting tactic for sure. And I mean, it's a symptom of the larger issue of, you know, superhero movies aren't doing as well. They need to bring in the audiences that like have a different I think more than superhero movies and more than Marvel fatigue, there's a fatigue to like the idea that these movies are big bubblegum movies that don't have heart. And I think this is an attempt to say, hey, we gave this all the heart. Like we took all the heart from all the other movies in the last few years and we tried to shove it together into this one. And like they got really good talent, and that's what you want. I mean, that it's an interesting tactic, but it's also a very kind of directly what I think critics of the MCU would say it needs, which is like give really good artists a chance to do their art inside your universe. And that's when I think the MCU works at its best. And so if that's what they're doing and it's not too cookie cutter and corporate down, it's actually giving these artists from the, you know, these set designers and the great people from the industry and letting them do their jobs well. That's what you want. So hopefully that's what we're getting.
Yeah, people still have an appetite for this stuff if it's done in a unique way. I mean, think about like The Boys, for example. Like it's this whole superhero thing, and it sort of riffs on Marvel and DC, but it's a huge show because it is really unique. It's in its own corner, and it says its own things that a lot of other films don't do. And so I think people have an appetite for unique takes. It's just, I don't know if they can necessarily ride on the, hey, it's this guy who was in that thing anymore. You know, like maybe they could between the Avengers movies, but now they kind of have to sort of be like, here's why you should see this one in the theater and not wait for Disney Plus, you know, or whatever. And I guess to that end, that's kind of the vision here for this particular sort of ad campaign.
The Boys is an interesting pull for you to say, because I've been saying it for a while now that The Boys and Invincible and things like that sort of deconstruct the idea of superheroes is, I think, a big sign that not necessarily fatigue, but growth of the superhero movie in a way that, or superhero genre in a way that could end the more earnest ones. I've often made the comparison, I'm sure I've probably done it on this show, made the comparison between superhero movies and Westerns, and part of what happens with a Western is you have this very like, the Westerns, it's like cowboys versus Indians, and then as culture grows and you realize like, oh, Native Americans who had their own perspective and they were being slaughtered, it's like, oh, we got to move away from this, and there's like all these questions, and you don't just believe a guy with a gun and a white hat is a good guy anymore, and like you start questioning the sort of like the lawmen of the time, and you start questioning when you start asking these bigger questions, like what does it mean for Homelander to have all that power? It is the beginning of deconstructing and maybe like sort of like moving away from it as a culture. The idea that having the most power is the wish fulfillment. You know what I mean? And instead, in The Boys, it's the people with no powers fighting that power. And it's an interesting. The reason I say it's an interesting pull is because that's kind of what this movie is. It's putting all these characters with no powers, and they're going to be going up against at least a character with a lot of power. And it's what is that? It is very much The Boys. And it's interesting. I've been talking about that dynamic with The Boys, and I hadn't thought of it in the context of the Thunderbolts, but the Thunderbolts is asking that question inside the MCU and like taking on that question directly, which for me is exciting, at least as a question of what does that do to superhero culture. And, you know, if the biggest franchise is starting to ask those same questions, and how hard will they go at that question? It already asked those questions in Falcon and Winter Soldier with the whole, like, super soldiers are inherently supremacist. Like, that whole conversation. They gave it to a villain to have that conversation about, you know what I mean? But, like, they still were asking those questions. And, like, what does it mean to ask that question so directly in a big-budget Marvel movie? It's exciting for me. I as exciting as this trailer is. This trailer's awesome.
Yeah, it's good. At the end of the day, I think this trailer wasn't made for the four of us or people like us.
Yeah,
I think it was made to have a broader appeal. Oh, you like Florence Pugh? You liked her in Midsommar? Like, oh yeah, she's in this. You know, you liked all of these people that worked on The Green Knight and Beef and Everything Everywhere All at Once, the Best Picture winner. You'll like this movie too. And so I do think this is absolutely a pull to get new audience in for a team-up movie. I've talked about this before, but we haven't had a team-up movie in a long time. I don't even really think I would count Guardians 3 as a team-up movie because they're already a team. So it's not it's not like disparate things coming together like a first team-up movie can be. So I really think Marvel is banking hard on this one. I think that they want it to be very successful, but I think they do want to draw in a different crowd and say, no, we're not just doing cookie cutter movies. Like, you know, I loved Brave New World, but it's tropey. It's perfect comic book tropey in its way. And so, I think it's an interesting tactic. Like, analytically, I wonder how successful it is, because I think people like us, like Jay, you were like, oh yeah, okay, moving on. But I do wonder, like, did it hit the reach they wanted with people who maybe don't typically come out for Marvel?
Let's be honest, Jay's waiting for Disney Plus anyway.
Still hasn't seen Brave New World.
I've been known to wait for a good Disney Plus release.
Shame.
You say it's not for the four of us, but this one is definitely for Jay Scotty, though. I will say that.
Oh,
Come on.
Yeah.
You're going to see it anyway, Jay Scotty, but this one was like, as you said when you started talking about it, this one's tailor-made for you. You just watched a clip from Multiverse News. If you liked it, go to our channel. We got a whole episode that it comes from, so go check that out and hit the like and subscribe. And we got lots of clips you'll enjoy, but also full hour-long episodes of Multiverse News with lots of things that don't even make it to clips. So check us out.
You stay clippy.